Mic check. Go ahead, Jess.
Mic check. Penis, vagina.
A lot of people say that. It's really weird.
Well, when somebody puts you on the spot to say something, it's like the first words that come to your mind. Penis, vagina.
Go right to third grade. Wait, do we have the girl who was gangbang at the police station with us? Oh, yeah.
Bring that up a bunch of times in the beginning.
The gangbang?
Yeah. Yeah, just bring it up. Bring it up a couple times throughout the show.
So tell me, you're a gardener.
Ask her. No.
Have you ever had a gangbang?
Did you hear about that gangbang at the police station?
Ask her what her thoughts are.
Girl, let me ask you a question.
Yeah, no, seriously, do it. I think that'll be good. It'll be like all current events.
I might not give you the answer that might be good.
No, just do a good job.
Live and let live.
Just do a good job.
Whatever she wants to do. I mean, whatever her pronoun is.
Right?
Apparently, you guys.
All right, let's save it. Save it for the podcast.
All right, you guys ready to roll?
Yeah. Look at me. He hits her and choo choo.
I just noticed Raggedy Ann.
Oh yeah, that's this freaky Annabelle or whatever the hell. Annabelle.
So I just realized, because I've seen the Annabelle movies, I just realized that the real Annabelle was Raggedy Ann, and I had one when I was a kid. It kind of freaked me out a little bit, not gonna lie.
Yeah, that one kind of freaks me out a little bit.
I loved my Raggedy Ann doll, mainly because she was the same size as me, so, you know. You're gonna love a doll that's the same size as you.
It's like your best friend.
Yeah, exactly.
You remember being that small?
Well, no, mine was big.
Oh, okay. I was like,
I had the big
you got a
Raggedy
good memory, man. It's tiny.
No, I don't remember
I remember being in
much
NICU
past
with
the
my
age of
Annabelle
10.
doll.
I don't remember what I did yesterday.
Yeah, that one was that.
I literally have to look through the workbook and I'm like, wow, we were there on Monday? It's only Wednesday? It's bad. It's bad. I yell at the girls, I'm like, you've got to keep your workbooks on you, and when you show up at the job, you write it down. Because I'm telling you right now, if that book is blank at the end of the week, you're not getting paid. Because you're not remembering what you did Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday.
Nope.
You're not going to.
All right, let's get started. You got to go ahead from Taylor. Hey everybody, it's another episode of Jobs Not Steve. I'm Luke Fraley with my co-host here,
Dylan Breeze.
and we got a guest, Jess, with us today. And Jess, tell us what you do.
I am a caretaker. So I take care of estates around here mainly. Mostly for people who have second homes here.
Okay.
So most caretakers, I'll just get into it. So most caretakers, there's like 3 different ways that you can do caretaking. You can either be a caretaker that gets like a salary and you live on site, or you work for one person all the time. Or you could be a caretaker that basically they oversee everything. They call in the plumber, they call in, the electrician, and their skill set is that they can see when there's a problem. And most of them get kickbacks from the trades. So they basically, if they call in a plumber, it's their plumber that they use on, and they basically, when they charge the client, they get a percentage of it. But they also get, a contract salary, basically. So it's like, and I'm not exactly sure how they work out the timing of it, but what I do is not that. Neither one of those.
Okay.
I have literally gotten a head full of gray hair because I don't do that. So my skill set is that I'm a gardener, I'm a housekeeper. I've worked in construction for a long time. So basically, I provide a very personal experience for my clients where it's, right now, there's 3 of us that work for them. Housekeeping, gardening, and I oversee if there's any problems with the house, I call in the trades. I don't get kickbacks, but I have people that I've known and worked with forever in the area. So I charge hourly. And that kind of frees me up so I'm not owned by any one person, which is nice. So
Yeah, the kickbacks can get messy too sometimes,
Yeah.
because if the client finds out that you got that kickback,
Yeah.
and they're like, well, why did it cost me this? I thought it was, somebody told me it was going to cost this, and they could, if you get caught doing that, I mean, it's
But
like,
not only that, it's more liabilities. Now you're basically a general contractor. So
Mhm.
now you're a middleman. So now you're getting a bill from them, handing them a different bill, and you're letterhead. And
Well,
it's a
the
whole
other
other
thing-
set
Yeah.
of responsibilities you got to worry about.
Well, one thing that I just heard about was talking to my irrigation guy, and he was working for. He went, these people were building a house, and he went up there and he was putting the irrigation in, and he found out that the reason why he was getting blamed for a lot of stuff that was going wrong with the irrigation, he was trying to explain to them that it was the plumber. The plumber was supposed to set up certain things so that the irrigation worked properly, the pump, so on and so forth. Well, the plumber didn't do it. And so he went in, he's like, this is what needs to be done. Well, he's talking to the caretaker, and the caretaker's getting kickbacks from the plumber. So he realized that there was a ton of people that were getting fired from the job because they weren't giving her kickbacks. So she was getting them fired and pulling in her own people.
Oh, yes. I've seen that.
So there's also, yeah, exactly. So, I let people know right away, like, you're going to bill them directly. I'm not getting a kickback. Like, you can work with the client yourself if you want to. Most people tend to work with me because a lot of the time the clients don't really know what they do or, how they do what they do, and it just becomes a pain in the butt. But most of the people that work with me are my friends, so I'd rather just keep it clean. I don't
That's
want it
nice.
to get dirty.
You don't have to do any background checks.
No. Well, and yeah,
Probably
that's,
should anyway, but
yeah, right. No, a lot of them. So I partner up kind of. Well, my husband's a contractor, so his GC is. I tend to use him a lot. Like if I don't know somebody who does something, like I know the plumbers and I know the electricians and whatever, but if I don't know somebody that does something that I need done, I just call him and I'm like,
that's pretty convenient.
send it this way, because
Keep it in the family.
yeah, it saves me a lot of research. Because I'll tell you what,
It's all going in the same pot, same piggy
Pretty
bank at the end
much.
of the day too. That's kind of nice.
pretty much. And he, he does the same favor back for me too. When he finishes the job, the people are like, oh, now we've got to hire a caretaker, or we've got to hire a gardener, or we've got
somebody
a
do it.
housekeeper, and he'll be like, call this girl, she'll take care of all of it. So it usually ends up pretty good. I'd have
One
to
hand washes another.
Exactly. And I take care of his house and life for him too. So he can attest that I know what I'm doing. So amazingly enough, I mean, the old adage, like, the plumber's toilet's always broken.
Yeah, I was gonna ask.
Yeah, his house is falling apart. So I'm constantly yelling at him, being like, yeah, your roof needs fixing. Like,
Does that mean your gardens are weedy and your house is a mess and everything else? Like, all
yes,
that? Oh.
very much so.
Hey, at least your
There's
honest
paint
about it.
chipping
You're
off.
like, hell yeah, dude. What do you expect,
Well, that's right. I've had clients go by and they're like, oh yeah, well, your house. I'm like, because I'm working at yours all the
Yeah,
time.
no,
Like,
I
and when I
thing.
don't leave
Yeah.
here until 8:00 at night, what do you think? I go home and paint my house?
Yeah, like, go sit in the garden, like, oh,
Exactly.
holiday today. I'm so
Believe it or
happy in my
not,
garden.
I do end up working my vegetable garden at night. Like, I put
Yeah.
spotlights on
Yeah.
because I do. I work late in the summer. I mean, this is my downtime. So.
It's a common theme with
Yeah.
these industries. Anything you do construction wise, you don't always have a set 9 to 5 schedule.
Oh God,
You're
no.
working, especially you being self-employed. You work till the
When-
job's done.
Yeah, exactly.
And then everything, personal life gets pushed off to the side.
Yep.
You know?
Yep.
Well, you're exhausted too, but at the end of the day, you're like, yeah, that's exactly what I do.
I-
Just keep working.
I can't tell you how much my family gets mad at me because they're like, oh, well, we're having a family get together Saturday afternoon. I'm like, I got 3 meetings this weekend. And they get mad. They're like, we haven't seen you in like a year or two. I'm like,
Yeah.
sorry. Like, I'm just, and right, you got to work up to it too. Like, my reputation was nothing 10 years ago. Now I have a good reputation. I work with a lot of the realtors in town. And so, I'm now building my crew basically at this point. And that's a lot harder than I ever thought it was going to be.
Yeah,
Luke and I have actually talked about this a couple times.
You need another realtor, by the way? His wife is a realtor as well.
Well, I'm talking like the housekeepers and the gardeners. Like, I have one girl that's a great gardener. She's amazing. I'm so lucky she decided to quit her job and come work for me 4 years ago because, I mean, I don't know what I would do without her.
Was she a gardener before? Or?
No, she was a florist. She worked in Waterbury as a florist.
Okay.
Yeah, she went to school for environmental science, but we all go to school for something that we don't. I mean, unless you go to trade school and you work in the trades, you went to college for something else and you're doing this now, Yeah. So, no, she was a florist and she came, which is great too because she's got all like the Latin names down pat.
Oh, yeah.
And mine's all experience. Like, I don't have a master gardener certificate, but my mom was a caretaker and I worked on a 30-acre estate on Lake Warmog from the age of 5 on. So, I learned everything from there, So Granted, it doesn't work to my advantage because if you don't have like a shiny truck and a master gardener certificate, some people will just, oh, you don't know what you're doing. Especially a couple of years ago, I looked like I was 15 and most people thought I just didn't have any experience. And then I started getting the gray hair and that worked better for me. So
Yeah, I always thought that was weird because I always thought if you had like a big fancy truck and everything and you were dressed to the T and you looked all this professional, that people would be like, oh, this guy must like charge too much or something.
Yup.
Or whatever, because I had a crappy truck too, but it's not. It's like quite opposite. When I got a nice truck, I got more work.
Yep.
And it's people, like you said, I guess they take you more seriously.
Depends on your clientele.
Yeah.
And I swear, some people like getting charged more.
Yep.
Honestly, believe it or not, like I always thought like I'm on the lower end. And I always thought like, okay, I'm being fair to my clients, and I'm not overcharging them. And when I started to have to charge more, it was like I got more clients. It's amazing. I think it's not to be like, what is it when you're like prejudiced against geographic? New Yorkers tend to think that if you're not charging enough, it's because you don't have enough experience, I think is what they think.
I think that's a real thought, for sure.
Yeah,
and it's,
for sure.
I was always in the same boat, afraid to like up my prices
Yep.
and stuff, and like people were turning me down when I was cheaper, and then as soon as I was like, you know what, screw it, I'm gonna start throwing. I'm just gonna throw out a high price to everybody, and whoever
See where it goes.
Whoever sticks around,
Mm-hmm.
whatever comes, and it actually worked. I
Yeah.
I actually got more work, and I was like, that was. And I was trying to downsize at the time, and I was like, that kind of backfired. Like, I didn't want more people,
Yeah,
but then you're
yeah.
like, whoa, but that's so much more money, and it's
Uh-huh.
like, oh, geez, like,
I looked
It
that
made-
early on.
Yeah, it makes working for yourself like worth it. You know what I mean? Because you're not,
Right.
you can actually make a good living.
right, you're not killing yourself
Yeah.
as much for, like, you don't have to do twice as
Uh-huh.
much work.
I'm still in the killing myself phase.
Yeah, I think we all are to a certain extent.
I'm hoping at some point here in the next couple of years, things will even out a little bit. I mean, and that's I mean, we talked about this at one point too. It's like you care about the business. You care about what you do for your clients and that you want them to be happy. But you can't really expect an employee to care the same way, So it's all about finding and giving that employee a good enough job that they do care, and that's kind of where I'm at right now, where I'm not making tons of money off of the girls that work with me because they're learning their specific side of it, and they're going to be the managers to oversee the people that are employees, because I can't do it all. I can't be in the house and out in the garden and talking to the clients and doing the business. Like, I tried to, and I lost my mind. So
That'll burn you out quick.
really
Yeah.
quick. And it also makes your quality of work go down too. So there's that. But yeah, I mean, and there's always the craziness that I'm on call 24/7. I mean, I've had people call me at 11 o'clock at night and I don't know how to turn my heat up. Like, oh, okay. Well, you know what I do? I look online.
Google.
Yeah, oh, you'd be really surprised
It's
at how
the
many of
triangle
them.
that points up.
It's always amazing that some of the things that these people don't know, and you're just, it really does have to do with where you live too. I mean, we live out here in the country. We know how to start a fire. I have people that rent their house out. When the renters come, I have to teach them how to start a fire because I'm afraid they're going to burn the house down. They won't open the flue. They don't know about a flue.
Yeah.
They start the fire.
Like, no, we're all vaccinated.
Next thing you know, the whole house is full of smoke.
Oh,
Fire
God.
department's there.
Some of the things that we've seen, I'm like, okay. And that's, that too is, you have to remember, they're really good at like huge corporate mergers.
Right, yeah.
They didn't learn
Yeah.
how to start a fire because they were in college learning how to do a corporate merger.
Right.
And they make a lot of money because of it.
Right.
But, so.
At what point do you tell them just don't use the fireplace? You don't need it. The house is heated.
Well, that right there, you
Turn on
kind
the
of.
TV. There's a special channel on there with some flames.
You have to learn, you can never
It even
tell
crackles.
them no. That is like the biggest thing. So you have to learn how to, it's definitely a practice in like learning people and learning how to get, like, coming up with an idea for something. Like, say for instance, you need a different fireplace or a different flue system or, whatever. You have to make it so that they think they came up with the idea. Because if you just come out and say it, they knock it down immediately, like every time. So you kind of have to work them until they finally are like, well, maybe we should just get a different fire system. Yeah, that's
Oh,
a
yeah,
great
yeah,
idea.
Great idea. Wow.
I don't know why I didn't think of that. You know?
So
It's-
there's
Oh, I hate
So it's a-
pandering. I
So
can't.
there's
Yeah.
a mind game too. There's a
It
little
is-
mind game, like a
it's
little
a lot.
psychology in there as well.
Yeah. Well, the hardest part too is, you know, it sucks being a woman sometimes in this because I'm not going to be sexist, but there aren't a lot of women that know construction and know how to do basic electrical and know how to do basic plumbing and know. So, you know, those are some of the things I always say to my clients, like, you know, I know when I'm in over my head. I know I'm not going to wire your kitchen. Like, I know when I'm in over my head, but I can put a new switch in if your switch is broken. You know, I can take care of your, you know, clog in your kitchen sink. Like, those are things I can do. A lot of times I've, you know, and I get rid of those clients quite quickly, especially now. In the beginning when I was starving, I didn't, and God, it was horrible. But there are a lot of couples where their wives don't know how to do any of this stuff, so they just assume that as a woman I'm just lying to them, and they give me a lot of crap about it, and they're pretty nasty about it. And when I go and succeed and I do something that fixes it, you'd think that they'd be like, oh, okay, so maybe she does know what she's doing. Oh, no. It's almost like their manhood has been hurt because they couldn't do it. So it's very,
Oh,
I've had
man.
a couple guys that I've worked for that I had to say, you know what? I can't work for you. And that's how I put it, because they got really demeaning. It was pretty bad.
Huh.
But again, you just move on. You know, you
That's
move
it.
on and
Find
you just,
another one.
yep, you keep in the back of your head, like, steer clear of that one when you see him in town, because you don't really want to say hi.
Do you ever, like, now when you know, find new clients and stuff, do you ever try and, like, can you see that coming?
Yes.
And you try and, like, nip it in the bud, like, right off the bat?
Usually what I tell people when they call me, because again, I don't really need any more clients right now. And to be honest, the clients that I have right now, I've had now for a good 5-6 years, and they're not going anywhere, and which is great, especially heading into a recession, because I know that they'll make sure that I'm good, you know. But I always tell people when they call me and they ask me to work for them, I say, you know, you do realize that this is an interview for you too, right? Like,
Oh, that's smart.
yeah.
I
And
like
they
that.
realize right off the bat, like, oh, she doesn't have to work for us.
I like that. That's-
Yeah. It definitely weeds a lot of people out. That's for sure. I mean, yeah. A lot of them, what really gets annoying is when they think that, like, like, we all know this. You know, when you go online, you can learn how to do something basic, you know, but once you've done it like 600 times, you learn the ins and outs of it and, like, some of the tricks, or, you know, how not to do something. There are so many people that think because, you know, we didn't go to college for what we do, or that it's just so easy to pick up and learn it online, that they can do what we do. And so they'll go online and, you know, oh, well, when you plant a tree, you have to do this, and then you have to do that. And I'm like,
Oof.
well, not really. You know, that's not really what you have to do.
Well,
you
they
know?
know that video wasn't like Arizona with different climate, different
There
soil,
you go.
different-
Totally
yeah.
different environment.
Yeah.
Yep. And that, like, Pinterest really sucks.
Yes,
They're like, oh, I
yes,
love
yes.
this garden. I'm like, yeah, well, that's a garden in California.
Yeah.
So you're not going to get any of that.
I wanted to start a group, you know, landscapers against Pinterest.
Yep.
Because, you know, oh, I want this plant.
Yep.
That plant won't grow in this zone. You
Yep.
know, oh, what do you mean it won't?
Find
or-
me
or
something
you-
like it.
Or you can't put that in the shade. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
exactly.
That needs full sun. This is, you know, and
That
they're
it's
just like,
definitely
do
one
it
of the.
anyway. Okay.
Well, that's the best. But you're like, fine, I will. I told you I was
Sign
going to die.
here.
Like,
Sign here.
Oh, and I love watching. They go to that. You go to that
Uh-huh.
client's house and you just watch that bush just slowly die, and you're like,
No, for sure. Like, and that's the other thing. You kind of just sit there and, again, you let them make their mistakes. You have to learn when to keep your mouth shut, like, and just be like, okay, if you think that's best. I was never good at that until this job. I was really bad at that.
Have you ever gotten snippy with a client
Oh,
before? Like, and have you ever had any blowouts with a client and like still work for them? Like,
I did, and it was a really, so I had a client that I actually worked for. So she bought the house, and I had worked for the previous owners for like 8 years, and it was one of my first jobs, and he and I got along great. And he told me when he sold the house to her, he said, don't work for her. And I was like, oh, come on. I was like, whatever.
It's cool he's
I was
looking
like, because, he was kind of hard to deal with sometimes too, but he and I got along great, and I was like, whatever. It's just him being him. So I figured, okay, I'll just take it on a trial and see, and that's the great thing about working hourly too, and not having a contract is I can say peace out whenever I want to, know.
You're not bound.
Exactly. And so this client ended up having animals that I had to take care of, and she didn't really want to pay for them to be taken care of properly. And that annoyed me, but I wasn't going to let them starve. They were chickens. And I wasn't going to let them starve just because she didn't want to pay me to go there 3-4 times a week. So she wanted to pay me $36 a week to take care of the chickens. And I was like, that's not even an hour. Chickens need to be taken care of every day.
Yeah.
So me being me, because I'm an animal person, I just bit the bullet and I just did it and took care of them. So when COVID hit, she came back and she was there full time, and so we were gardening for her, and the estate that she bought had expansive gardens, and she off the bat told me she didn't want to pay, however much it cost every year. So I was like, that's all right, we can scale it back, So meanwhile, I have other clients and we're doing installs, so I left the girls there to do some weeding, and I went and picked up plants for another job, and they happened to be hydrangeas, and they were in bloom at the time, so they had their big ball in them. There were 10 of them in the back of my truck. Well, she came in and drove by my truck, and she saw the blooms in the back of my truck. We left about 2 hours later, and I got a phone call from her, and she was screaming, calling me a thief. She told me that I stole the blooms off of her hydrangeas.
What? Glued them to another bush?
I was like,
How is that even possible?
I was like, I did what? I was like, why do you think that I did this? Well, I saw them in the back of your truck. I said, well, did you stop and look in the back of the truck? You would have seen they were plants. They weren't just flowers, they were plants. No, I know you did. She goes, and then she sends me these pictures, and it's a picture she claims that she took 2 weeks ago of her hydrangea bush, and then the same hydrangea bush that day. And I was like, well, first off, if you really want to get technical about this, I count 25 in the first picture. There's 23 in this one. They're also from different angles. Finally, I went to her house and I was like, you and I are going to have a conversation because you're not going to call me a thief for no reason. Yeah. I was like, I've never had anyone in 20 years of doing this call me a thief. I'm not about to let you do this.
Right.
And I ended up going there, and she basically, after a lot of yelling and a lot of screaming, from her, not from me. I don't think she liked that I kept calm. She didn't apologize. She said, my husband and I will have to talk to see if we want to keep you on. And I said, okay, you do that. And I left, and I was thinking to myself, I hope she calls back and tells me, And I was saying to myself, I'm not going to go back to work for her. I'm not going to go back to work for her. And she called about 3 days later, and she half apologized. People don't like to apologize. And she said, we'd like to keep you on for certain things. And I said, you know what, we'll see how it goes. And I ended up staying on for another year, and then killed her chickens because they were all sick, and then quit. As soon as the chickens were gone.
Did she know that you were killing the chickens?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
They were all, she was taking care of them. And no, I didn't. Trust me, there's a lot of jokes that we have, dropping a dead raccoon in somebody's, chimney because he was such a jerk.
And I killed her chickens.
And I killed her chickens and ran. No, they were all really sick, and all of them, they had a really bad disease. And I basically said to her, you don't have any business owning animals. You really shouldn't have chickens. Yeah. You don't live here, and we had to slaughter him, which sucked. I hated doing that, but yeah. There are some people that are totally wacky, and you run across them, and you're like, it's kind of like rubbernecking. You kind of you're like, wow, what is she gonna do next? But you take it in stride. Because the way I look at it, we live in a small town. A lot of people in town know me. They know I'm not a bad person. They know I bend over backwards. Yeah. They know that I'm good at my job. So if one person is going to sit there and scream to the heavens that I've done something horrible, I know that there's going to be 10 people to back me up. So I'm at that point. In the beginning, I wasn't, and it was definitely a little scary because your reputation is everything. It's everything.
Ultimately, yeah. And then you don't know, piss somebody off. They have friends, and then You know, if they're closer with them than they are with you.
Exactly.
And the word gets around that, oh, you're a thief, and it's like, when it's, you know, that could ruin your reputation.
Oh, God, yeah. Oh, God, yeah. Well, and two, you know, it's weird because there are, like, I don't know, your reputation gets around when you're good, but when you've done something bad, it goes even faster. You know,
It
like,
spreads like wildfire.
yeah, and a lot of these people from the city, especially like people that don't really know the area that much, they it's almost like they feel like if they fire you, there's 10 more people, because in the city that's how it is. Like, you fire them and there's 100 different companies that can do the same thing. And what they don't realize is that they're getting a reputation too. There's
and most people up here don't like you, so
no, yeah.
Be careful.
Oh, I've had to say that to somebody. Yeah. I mean, I wasn't working for the woman. She rented a client's house, and she was just awful. She was awful, and they were building a house in a town across the way, and she literally, every single person, you know, the heat's out. Okay, well, I'm going to send Mitchell down to take care of it. You know, the HVAC people and the furnace people. And she goes, okay, I said, do you want me to let them in, or will you be there in an hour? Oh, I'll be here. They show up. The tech calls me. He's been pounding on the door for an hour. She won't come to the door. He can see her in the window. She's looking at him, but she won't come to the door. So then I call her, and I'm like, okay, so what's the problem? I'm not letting him in my house. Do you want heat?
Do you know how this works?
I was like, I don't know what to tell you. If you don't let him in the house, he can't give you heat. And she's like, well, I'm not ready for this. And I was like,
go grab a sweatshirt and call me back tomorrow.
Yeah, right.
I was like, well,
get that fire going. Make sure you open the flue.
I'm like, I just don't know what to tell you. I was like, I guess burn a fire. I don't. I was like, so I called the tech back. I was like, leave. I don't know what to. She doesn't want to let you in the house. He was like, okay, it's not his problem.
I
You
hope
left.
they charged you for it at least for
Oh,
making
no.
the house call.
Well, what the sad part was,
he drove all the way out there.
It was the homeowner that gets charged for it because she's renting the place, and that's what made me mad, because it's my client that's getting charged for it, and that the rentals kind of get hard like that because yeah. So either way, you know, she that was common with her. Common. The lawn guys would show up and she'd chase them off the property, and like, you know.
Yeah, that was me.
We tried to talk to her and be like, are you just afraid of people? Like, how, you know, you want the lawn mowed, but you don't want the lawn guys to come here. So how are we supposed to mow the lawn? Like, what would you like us to do to make you happy? And she had no explanation for it. Well, recently I was talking to a couple of the trades that I work with, and they were telling me that they had been called onto a job in this town that she lives in, and that it was a new construction and blah blah blah, and they're going on and on about how crazy this person is and blah blah blah, and of course they tell me the name, and I was like, oh, I know who she is. And I said, and they're like, you know, they're calling people now all the way from down on the coast because they can't get anyone around here to work for them. And I'm like, you claimed that you loved this town so much and you loved the school systems and everything. You just totally, nobody's gonna work for you.
Yeah, you burnt like bridges.
Yeah, and that's a small town, you know. So it's kind of one of those things where when they start to get a little crazy, I'll just be like, you do realize that, like, you're gonna have to live with me in this town.
Yeah.
Like, this is a small town. I wouldn't get too nasty. Like, I'm not threatening you, but you're still gonna have to see me.
Yeah.
Like, you might not want to get too mean. Like,
I'm not going anywhere.
yeah, I'm your neighbor.
It's gotta get
Like, yeah. Oh, and that's happened too. I'm sure you know. I don't know if you've ever had clients that were just crazy or done something stupid, or they're embarrassed in front, like.
Oh yeah, no.
Yeah,
and then you
you
bump
see
into
them
them
in
at the
town.
hardware store.
Yeah.
You're just like,
Yeah.
and it's funny too is like they'll never make eye contact
No.
with me.
No.
I'm like, all right, I'll be the better person,
Yeah.
and I'll say hi, and they'll completely ignore you, or they want to make eye contact. And
Yep.
it's like,
Yep.
and I'm, you know, like, oh, good. I hope you feel that way. You know what I mean? Like, I hope you feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, I hope you feel uncomfortable because you were pretty rude. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It's funny too
Yeah.
how you said, like, you know, you'll talk to other people. Like some of these people actually get a pretty good reputation.
Yeah,
themselves.
they do.
You know, you can be talking to another landscaper and they're like, oh, is that the second house down from the right? You know what I mean? Like, oh yeah, we work there. Oh yeah, my buddy's landscaper. They worked there for the 6 months. And, and so was there. And everybody just knows that one person, and then you drive by their house and you see like a different crew there like
Oh
every
yeah.
week. And you're just
Oh
like,
yeah. Like my neighbor down there. My neighbor went through like they bought the house. I don't even know who they are because they've never introduced themselves to anyone on our street. But it was like all this work was getting done, and I see one landscaping truck. 3 days later, I see another truck with a different sign, and then like a week later, I see another truck, and I'm like, "Whoa! How many landscaping companies has she hired?" And then I'm downtown, and I'm talking to the girls in the store, and they're like, "Oh no! She kept firing." And now there's this one poor sap that's working for her, and he's been there for like a month. I'm like, "Man, she must own you."
Right, or it's just like a kid starting out.
Yeah, exactly.
And he's starving, and he's like,
exactly.
Whatever
Yeah,
I
like,
he thinks that's what's normal.
Yeah.
He thinks it's normal to deal with
Well,
people like that.
that's the thing is it's like trial by fire. If you can handle a really horrible client,
Yeah.
and then like over the years you end up getting the good clients.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know?
Oh, yeah,
Like,
it's-
but you've gone through all that pain and suffering, so they look good.
And,
you know?
and now you can see what's coming
Yeah.
down the road,
Oh,
like
yeah.
from a mile away.
Oh yeah, from a mile away for
Gotta
sure.
cut your teeth somewhere.
Yeah.
I was never good at reading people. I was really bad when I was younger. I was just, as long as you were nice to me, I was like, oh, hi, friend. you know.
You're the one that you were the kid that got in the van.
Yeah, for sure. I was like, what adventure are we going on?
Candy.
But now I've learned
kind of
definitely
candy we're
how to
talking
read
here?
people. Definitely. Definitely. There's certain people that I see, in politics that I'm like, yeah, if I ever met him and he wanted to hire me, yeah, no. He's one of those.
or actors and actresses.
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
I'm assuming do you work for some famous people or?
Yeah, there are, and that's the other thing too is, when you, like, we go into people's homes, we're a part of their lives. Like, I had to bury a client's dog for them. They were in Paris and their dog got hit. Not on my watch, but their dog got hit and I had to bury their dog for them. Like, you become very close to people, especially because I'm not just going in and just checking their home. I'm going in and cleaning for them and organizing. Like, I always tell them.
You're up in their shit.
I am.
Really,
I am.
really,
Big time. I mean, there's certain areas that I'm like, never go there. Like, never open that drawer. Like, bedside
Did you find
stand.
out the hard way?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And then there were times where,
Don't
like,
touch
you
the
accidentally
stiff
open
towel.
something and you're like, nope, I don't want to know that. I don't want to know
Oh my
that.
God.
But yeah, I
So-
mean, you're a big part of their lives. A big part of their lives. So.
What is like? I don't know. Can you tell us like one of the craziest things that as that you've experienced while doing the like caretaking cleaning part, like being inside somebody's home?
Yeah. I mean, there's the box of toys. There's always that.
Everybody
Yeah, everyone has that.
toys, right?
Well, the worst part
That's not even.
is
You're talking
when-
about Matchbox cars, right?
yeah.
Tons of Legos.
Legos.
They're Lego
Come
capital.
down here into some mine.
Well, there's the ones with like the embarrassing part about it is when you find something and like you didn't realize that that's what it was and you like moved it or something and then like you realize, oh crap, that's what it is, and you try to put it back, but then they know that you saw it because they put like the piece of tape across it or something, and then there's that uncomfortable silence and you're like, oh. Or like you're walking with your client, like go into the bedroom and they're showing you something like, oh, the wall's cracked here or whatever, and like you both look down and you realize like, oh, there's that box, and you hesitate for a minute and then they realize that you're hesitating for a minute, and then there's that awkward like, oh, she knows.
Like, oh, she saw my lightsaber.
Wait a minute. This box is the dust is taken off the top of this box.
I have to say, like, believe it or not, and now it's so much easier to talk about it, but for years, I mean, I started doing this a while ago. I mean, I'm not like really old, but a while ago, a lot of people smoke pot. Like, a lot of people smoke pot, and a lot of wealthy people smoke pot. But they would always try to hide it beforehand, and now they're very open about it. So it's like, it's just funny because before, I worked for clients like 10 years ago that I never knew that they smoked because they were always trying to hide it, and they'd like tuck things away. Now they just leave it out on the table, and I'm like, oh, I got a nugget for you to try. Like, why didn't you tell me beforehand?
Right.
But yeah, I mean, you get
I
to
clean
know.
houses, caretake garden, and I'm a drug dealer.
And I'm a drug dealer. Drug dealer to the wealthy.
Only to the wealthy.
Yeah, they pay good.
And being the gardener, I mean,
Yeah,
I
right,
should expect
right.
you to grow. Some
I'm
of that
waiting
stuff.
till the
Dr.
day
Green
somebody
Thumb over
asks me.
here.
Somebody asks me to throw a couple plants in, so I'm gonna be like, hell yeah. But no, you do. You get to be very personal with them, and like just things that happen in their lives. Like I had a client whose kid had a lot of behavioral issues, and the kid went in and out of institutions and stuff like that. And here I am seeing them on a weekly basis, and you talk to them, you get to know them, and they know about your life. And I mean, I know there's caretakers that get that close, but like I said, it's a very, what I provide is a very private and personal experience, because it's me every time, or it's one of us 3 girls every time. So they can trust that it's us, it's not some company that's going to send, a different person every single time to clean their house. And that, I think too, is why I get the clients that I get, because, they want somebody that they can trust, and somebody that, they can make one phone call to me and everything's taken care of. You know,
Yeah, that one-stop shop's got to be a big help.
it's
you know?
huge. It's
The-
huge.
The outside, the inside, and just a set of eyes on a house that
Yep.
they're not at all the time.
And a lot of times they don't know. I mean, I can't tell you how many clients that they've never owned a house before. They've only lived in apartments. So they come in and they're terrified because they just made this massive purchase. And then I walk up and I'm like, don't worry about it. We got this. and yeah, they after
Just get your checkbook ready.
we got this. It's here's
yeah.
my Venmo.
Well,
handle.
that's the biggest thing is they're
Direct
always,
electric,
Direct
oil,
deposit.
maintenance.
they always sit back, like all those things they account for, but then like it's always, I had one guy to try to tell me he wanted to get a generator, and I was like, all right, and I priced out the generator for him and everything. And so the guy says, the generator guy's like, all right, so you need to put a slab in. I said, yep. So the homeowner looks at me, he's like, a slab? And I was like, yeah, we got to put a flat surface. We're going to put it on a concrete slab.
Slab of cash.
Yeah. Just hand over
For
your
a
money.
generator these days.
And he
What
looks,
did I tell you at the beginning?
he's
Get
like,
your
well, tell me how
checkbook
much that's
ready.
going to cost. And I was like, well, I don't know. I was like, I give him an estimate for it because he loved I had to write everything down for him just so that he could go back, in a week or two when I sent him the bill and be like, well, you said it was going to cost this much.
Yeah.
You know how that goes.
Yes, I do.
And you're like, I said about that much.
There's-
I didn't count on like the tree roots that are growing up under here.
Yeah.
There's things that. So anyway, I can't even remember what the price was, but he had gone online and he came back to me and he goes, "What? It says online that this should cost me maybe $120." And I couldn't even stop myself. I just burst out laughing. And I was like, okay, and what planet?
Yeah.
And he just looked at me, he's like, well, it says that, it's this much for the, I said,
Yeah, that's if you want to go do it yourself.
Yeah, okay. That's for the
That's what the
that-
materials
yeah,
cost.
but I was even doing it yourself, the concrete isn't even going to cost that much. I was like, are you going to get it level? So basically, they just, I don't know. People are crazy.
And you're in the industry of people.
Yeah, I am. But you get the good ones too. You have really good ones. Like I have clients that they are so appreciative of everything we do. Like sometimes I have to tell them to stop thanking me. I'm like, no, this is my job. I promise. Yeah, I had a client. They're the sweetest people in the world, and I've worked for them now for 8 years, and all we do is clean for them. But over the years, things happen, and I help them and whatever. And we went to go clean last week, and we walk into the laundry room, and my employee looks at me, and she's like, "It smells really wet down here." I'm like, "Yeah, it does." We look in the vent in the floor. Now we're on the basement level. It's filled with water, filled with water, at least 2 inches of it. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, well, we've had a lot of rain, but we need to make sure this isn't plumbing, So I go and tell them, and they're like, what do we do? And I'm like, well, we're going to have to figure this one out. I mean, long story short, it comes out that, the way the house was built, that the HVAC's into the ground and the water's coming up. And they've got a high, they redid a field, so now it's all getting pitched towards the house. But they wouldn't have figured that out. They didn't even know who to call. And I'm like, well, we need to figure out if it's a plumbing issue first, or if it's just a curtain drain issue, if it's a foundation. we need to figure this out. And like, it's a finished basement. And I'm like, where are we going to put a sump pump?
Yeah, right.
You know, like, so.
Hide under the bar.
Yeah, right? So I'm like, this is going to be an interesting one, but, you know, but without us there, you know, and he says it all the time. He's like, I don't know what we would, she calls me Superwoman. And I'm like, you guys have to stop being so nice. I'm like, I'm just doing things that need to be done and telling you where to go. Like, but they're appreciative, because without us there to give them that, you know, they'd be lost, you know, and that's what it is. We don't realize that people don't know who to call. They don't know how a house is built. They don't know, you know, if their lawn is dying, they don't know why. They just wouldn't even know where to begin. So, yeah, I mean, it's nice to be appreciated. So that's a good part of the job. That's a benefit. And you make some pretty good friends. You know, you bail out the stockbroker, you know. He's like, you want me to invest some money? I'm like, yeah, okay. Yeah, for sure.
Thank yous are nice.
No, I want to work for you
I wanna
forever.
Exactly. I mean, you do. You make, and, you know, you make a lot of good friends. You do. And a lot of people that are really appreciative of everything that you've done for them. But then there's the ones that aren't. I mean, I think that's with any job, though, right? I mean, you have the good sides and the bad sides.
Absolutely.
So, my wife cleans houses for a living too, and she does some of these like really, you know, huge, expensive houses, and the objects in the houses are like worth more than both of our incomes combined.
Yeah.
You know, and so she's like, you know, occasionally she's mentioned like, you know, it could be nerve-wracking.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's like cleaning around this vase or something.
Yeah.
That's like,
Oh, yeah.
you know, you gotta forbid you like bump into a coffee table or something. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Have you ever broken anything
Oh,
in
yeah.
anybody's house?
Oh,
and like,
yeah.
what was the most? Do you know like what the most expensive thing? And like, how do you tell the customer that?
Oh,
It's gotta
God.
be a dreadful phone call.
You hope that you've worked for them for a long time so you have a good rapport. When it happens right off the bat, you might as well just say goodbye to the job. Because they just think you're an idiot. But, yeah, I had worked for them. Luckily, I'd worked for them for quite some time. But, you know, some of these interior designers, they don't think about function necessarily. It's more about like how pretty it is. And so they had put this table, and it was a 3-leg table. 2 legs were on the rug and 1 leg was off, and there was a lamp on top of it.
Nice.
So I went to go vacuum under the rug, and I flipped the corner up, and of course when I flip the corner, the whole table goes flying and the lamp smashes on the floor, and I'm like, man. And of course they're not home, because you clean when they're not home. And luckily they weren't coming up for a couple days, so I girded my loins. I'm like, all right, I gotta tell her about this. And I honestly thought it was gonna be like I don't know, maybe an $80 lamp. It was a $5,000 lamp. And I was like, I haven't even made that much in the last 2 months. I was like, I don't know what am I going to do? And then she tells me that it's, you know, some like fancy lamp from some boutique that an artist made. And I'm like, I can't even replace the damn thing. It was horrible.
Beethoven's lamp.
Yes,
Do you
exactly.
have like insurance for that? Or?
Yes, yeah. You do liability
You have to,
insurance.
right?
Yeah, you have to. And, you know, you make the claim. It is what it is. And believe it or not, like, that's one of the things that I am very careful about. Like, I'm always saying to the girls, like, pay attention to where your vacuum is, because that knocks things over, you know? Yeah, like, you just have to, you learn to be careful with things, and you learn to steer clear of things. But, yeah, I mean, and I have told clients, too, like, I worked for a woman who had a lot of really strange art, like statues and weird things all over the place, and I was like, I'm not touching any of them. I'm like, you can dust all of them.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going near them. I don't want to deal with it. And she was cool about it.
Sign a liability waiver.
Yeah, right. But then there's also too,
I'm not
like,
even gonna touch that with a feather.
the most nerve-wracking I think I've ever been was I had a client who he had a brand new Porsche, like, right off the trailer. They delivered it, and I had to go pick him up at the airport in the thing, and I'm sitting there like
screw that.
white knuckling going to get him, and I'm freaking out, and I just kept saying in my head, he loves me, and if I crash it, he can pay for it. And that's all I kept saying to myself, because, you know, the guy's coming in on his own private plane, so he can afford it.
Right.
But that's how I got myself through it, because I'm like, he's got the money.
It's just,
Like,
that's a Honda Civic to him.
yeah, exactly.
That's it.
Exactly.
Cars are different because you got automotive insurance.
You
know.
do, but
Yeah,
still,
Whatever you're gonna do,
you don't want to be
sorry.
that
They just
jerk that
drive it up.
crashes in before he even has a chance to drive it.
You're an asshole. It's your fault. You saw what I showed up to your job on. You put me in this car.
Exactly.
Just because
What
you
do
didn't
you think
want to
those
ride in
dents
my
showed
truck.
up?
It's your fault.
Right?
Hey, I just
Right?
wanted to test the airbags on this for you. You're welcome. They work.
I mean, I do have to say one of the perks are, because I do have a couple clients that don't come around like all winter, and they do. They say, can you drive the car? Because you don't want to leave your car just sitting, not running. So, but there are times that I do have to like take the car for the day so that it runs and, you know, the battery's kept up and stuff like that, and take it down to the shop or whatever. I had one client that said, you know, he just gave me his SUV BMW and said, drive it around. I'm like, okay. Like, much better than my vehicle. You know,
I have to.
yeah. And then, you know, the client that I was talking about, he just finished building his house in the Hamptons, and he asked me to come up with my husband and use the house without even them there, and you can use the boat. And so you do. There's a lot of perks to the job. There are. But you definitely, you know, there are some people that have worked the job and they just feel like they're a slave. And I don't feel like I'm a slave. Like, I think a lot of my clients, well, I know a lot of my clients respect me for knowing what I do and for doing what I do and for always being on call and always being there to help them. And, you know, but there are a lot of people that think it's lowly work, I guess. You know, it's not a trade that housekeeping is not a trade that they look up to.
It's like it would be looked down on.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
And
the stigma. Well, there's, you know, definitely there's a stigma out there for sure.
There is.
With that type of work.
Oh,
But
any
it's,
type
definitely
of
is.
work that doesn't involve a college degree.
Yeah.
People, like you
Yeah.
said earlier,
Yep.
people think it's easy and anybody can do
well,
it.
it's like you're the one who's
But you know
cleaning the
what?
filth.
Not
and
anybody
doing
can
that,
do it.
you know what I
How
mean?
many
It's like-
times I've heard somebody say to me, like, oh, I'm not scrubbing the shit off their toilet. And I'm like, you're getting paid to do it. You're not doing it with your bare hands. Like, what? You're doing it with a toilet brush. You do it for your own toilet.
Pretend you're gardening in a water garden.
I'm
with
like,
a little
what is
dirt.
the problem? You know? I don't know. To me,
Oh,
it's just
man.
weird. Because, like, it's one thing if you're, like, cleaning gas station bathrooms, but you're going into somebody, it's not like it's, you know, there's
Right.
not shit smeared on the walls.
Well,
like-
you hope not. Depends on what kind of crazy party.
There
you
has
had.
been one of those, and I quit very quickly after. Her husband got sick in the bed, and she just assumed I was going to clean it up. And I was like, no.
Really? Got a can of gas?
Uh-huh. By clean, you mean burn, right?
Where's your fire pit out back?
That's biohazard. You're gonna have to pay a lot of extra money.
That's why I like I said, I've had so many people be like, oh, you can make more money doing contract, or you can make more money, you know. I'm like, doing salary, and I'm like, no, because I don't want all my eggs in one basket, and I want to walk when I want to walk, you know, like, and
Yeah.
it keeps it honest, you know. They have the fear that, whoa, Jessie might walk away, you know. You can't be too mean to her. So, you know, it definitely, I like the freedom that I have by doing it hourly, for sure.
So is that one of the reasons why you work for yourself?
Yeah.
Because you like the freedom of working for yourself, even though, which is kind of funny because
There's
it's
no
actually
freedom.
the opposite. There's actually no freedom.
No freedom.
There's
Everyone's
no
like,
freedom.
oh, work for yourself, it'll be great, you know.
Especially
and it's
being
like,
on call.
What
yeah.
I like about yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, for the most part, everyone respects, unless they have a big emergency, they respect my weekends for the most part. That I've gotten rid of the clients that don't. But to be honest, the reason why I started doing it was I get to be outside. I get to, like, I don't have somebody breathing down my neck telling me, like, oh, you got to fill these forms out. You got to punch in at this time. You got to, like, I worked for people like that. And I don't know, maybe I have a problem with authority. I just didn't like it at all. I had a little bit of a problem with a couple bosses, and I was like, I'm going to be my own boss, and I'm never going to be like that. And I have lived up to that. I have to say, I'm a pretty good boss to my employees will definitely say I'm a pretty good boss. I've never lost them. I've had to fire them, but I've never lost an employee. They've always enjoyed doing what they're doing and working with me, because I look at it like we're a team. You know, I'm not really the boss. We're just a team. I do one thing, you guys do other things, and we're just a team, and we get it done. Like, that's the best way in my mind to do it, because the ultimate end goal is that we all get it, whatever it is, accomplished, right? So, I mean, I'm not sitting there critiquing, and, you know, and we catch each other too, you know, like there's a girl that just started working with me again, and she was working for a company cleaning houses, which is a little bit different than what we do. Like, a housekeeping business, there's like 3 levels of cleaning, and we do higher end cleaning. So most housekeepers will come in and just do like a surface wipe, dust vacuum, mop. Like that's what they do. And they don't get deep into things like
the deep clean.
The deep clean. My theory.
Deep clean.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is like most people are like, oh, we do spring cleaning once a year. That's not how I do our housekeeping. Our housekeeping is that your house, most of these houses have been like a lot of money spent on them. They're like picture perfect, magazine perfect. So they come in and destroy the house, and we turn it back to magazine perfect every single time. And it takes a long time, but they don't mind paying for it because, as I tell my employees, like, our job is to make it so that when they show up for the weekend or however long they're here, they get to spend their time with their family, and they get to go do things, not work on their house, not clean up after the mess from the weekend before. They make enough money to do that.
Not call me to come to the house.
So, I mean, yeah, that's kind of, I mean, sometimes it sucks. I mean, they destroy things and you're like, God damn it, it's the 3rd time you've ruined that couch cushion. But, you know, they're paying you to take care of it. You do it. There is a lot of motherfucking behind the back sometimes. But
so how does it work lately? Because a lot of these people have been up longer with remote work and not having to go to an office and stuff.
Yeah. COVID was
gotta be
hard.
tough scheduling for you, right? They don't want you in the house during that, all that stuff. I mean...
So, yeah, it used to be really open. Like, I could be like, okay, they're going to be back on Friday, so I can clean these 10 houses in between that time anytime. After COVID, when COVID happened, I had to get rid of a couple housekeeping jobs because I just couldn't schedule it. Like, and a lot of people got really, like, tough about things. They're like, well, you can only come between 11 and 2 because I'm going to be on Zoom meetings from blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, The scheduling has definitely gotten a lot crazier, but for the most part, if I say to them, okay, you're going to get cleaned on Wednesdays 9 to 12, they just make sure that they're not doing anything at that time. So it usually works out pretty good. And like, yeah, for the most part, they're pretty good about it. I mean, there are times too, like, it used to be like we had the house free to ourselves so we could be loud, yell to each other across the house, like whatever
Alexa,
we needed.
play some good music.
Pretty much. I mean, there were a couple of them that we would rock it out while we were cleaning, but you know, it is what it is. You kind of have to not do that. Or the client just learns that you like to listen to music, so they just turn the music up.
So the other thing too is with all this like Alexas and all this like nanny cams and all the technology now, you must feel like you're being watched the whole time and listened to the entire time.
These types of houses had cameras before all that stuff too.
Yeah.
Well, the bonus is because I'm the caretaker, I usually have access to all of it. So I've
been suspicious about that teddy bear on the shelf for a long time now.
I had one client that she thought she was being sneaky, but wasn't very smart of her. She had me meet the security guys, so they told me where all the hidden cameras were.
They're like, hey,
I was like, that really didn't work out well for you, did it? In fact, I told her son where they were too.
If you want to smoke pot and your mom doesn't know, you gotta go behind that tree
it was
over there.
pretty much exactly that.
Go stand by the hydrangea bush.
By the way, you know there's a hidden camera up there, right? It was like,
I was like, oh,
forget about the one on the rock wall.
Exactly.
They know too much already.
Yeah, she was a tough one. Yeah, no, it's definitely, you have to be careful. Like, I think too that, again, like, I've known most of my clients for a very long time. Like, they know I swear. They know I'm going to get pissed sometimes. Like, you don't do it in front of them. It's a respect thing. But if they're going to sit there, and I did say this to one client that he was having construction done on his house, and the contractor was motherfucking him right and left. And I was standing there. I didn't really defend him because he was a jerk. And I just let the contractor say his piece. He knew there was a camera there. And so, you know, I get a call from the client later that night, and he was talking about me, and I didn't, and he was like really pissed, and he was, you know, I'm going to fire him. I said, you can do whatever you want, but it's kind of sneaky of you to be sitting there watching him while he was working.
That's creepy.
You know, I said, do you want somebody watching you the whole time you're working? Like,
and maybe if you're mad about what he said, change the way you treat people.
Yeah.
They never think of that.
They don't.
Fucking
They don't.
brutal.
There's a reason he's saying the things.
Yeah. So I mean, that's
like
kind of.
some Saw stuff, though. It's like we're gonna play a game.
I laid it out, and I said to him, I was like, not for nothing. He's like, well, I have every
It's
right to
creepy.
watch what's going on in my house. I said, yeah, to watch. You don't really need to listen.
Yeah, that's.
I said,
creepy.
it's one thing to have a camera on workers in the house. It's a total nother to sit there and eavesdrop on their conversations. When they're talking to each other about something, you're not a part of that conversation. Like, what if he wants to talk to his, coworker about the fact that he's gay and he's in love with him? Like, you're not a part of that conversation. That's not okay for you to listen to that.
But
You
not
know?
only you have the right, but doesn't mean you should. I mean,
Exactly.
if you knew what he was doing, you'd be able to do it yourself.
Yeah.
If you have somebody doing the right job, they have an inspector coming out to look at everything you're doing.
Yep.
What do you need to watch?
What do you need to watch? So this wasn't on my jobs. It was on a contractor's job, and so it was something like this really expensive bottle of alcohol, and they took and put it on the job site. The clients did, to see if it went missing. Lo and behold, it went missing.
So they just set it up?
So yeah, they set it up. It went missing. And, they come to the GC and they're screaming at the GC, and the GC's sitting there like, I don't know what to tell you. You set them up. I mean, did you set a camera up on it? Like, you want me to go on a red mad hunt for this bottle of alcohol? Like, he's like, yeah, obviously, but if you didn't put a camera on it, how am I supposed to tell which of the 25 guys that were in here did this?
Yeah.
And he's like, and not to mention, you've been hiring people, so you're coming at me, yelling at me. It might not be one of my people, know? But people want to see if there's thieves working for them, I guess. My point is I don't think you should be tricking people into it.
No, don't force people down the road.
Yeah, exactly.
It's stupid.
But,
if you're worried about that, hide stuff that's valuable. Let the people do their job, and
there you go.
The job's done. They don't
There
come
you
back.
go. In a housekeeping situation, I can understand not necessarily having, a camera on them or putting stuff out. I mean, I guess I can kind of understand putting it out, but that's why I'm very careful about who I hire, because it is a big thing. I mean, I have other friends that own housekeeping businesses, and it is a scary thing. I mean, one of them got a call 2:00 in the morning. The woman came home, and she had been looking for her diamond ring for 8 hours and couldn't find it and had to call the cops. And my girlfriend's like, I can't do this. Because she had hired somebody she didn't know that had references, great references, worked for Mary Maids and worked for all these other companies. And she checked out her references, and they said she was trustworthy. But within a matter of 2 months, she had stolen something, and they found out that it was her, and, she got charged, whatever. But you have to be careful, because you are going into people's belongings. I can't expect them to put their, jewelry and stuff away necessarily. So, and that's where it comes into, like, personal business, If I had a big crew and we were servicing 150 houses or whatever, that's when I would kind of say to the clients, like, put your valuables away then. Like, I don't know.
I mean, that's a whole other
That's one of-
topic, too. Just owning your own business, dealing with employees.
Yeah.
With,
What's the worst?
trying to trust employees and making sure that they hold the standard qualities.
That's a hard
that
one. Yeah.
What's the worst employee you ever had that you had to fire? Like, what was the worst thing an employee's done?
Oh God, that you're putting me on the spot, because there's so many. There's so many stupid things that I've been like.
You can go through a couple of
We got time.
Well, okay, so I usually spend about 2 months, and I go and clean side by side. But there are houses that the clients aren't there. So, I'll say after 2 months, and like I said, I usually don't hire people that I don't personally know or have, known beforehand or know of them and have people that know them. Like, I do a really good background check on people. So usually they have to go through that rigorously first, and then I hire them. But there are people that, like, I'm not friends with, but we have mutual friends.
Good.
So so you go through 2 months of training, and you write it down for them and say, okay, this is the basic cleaning of a house, and this is, whatever. The gardening, we're usually all working as a team. So I'll send them out to clean on their own, and then you come in and you're like, what do you mean you didn't mop the floor? You're cleaning a house, aren't you? Like, shouldn't you mop the floor? Oh, well, I just thought that maybe, well, yeah, I don't know what I thought. It's like, well, maybe
I
you
know what
should have
you
been
did
thinking.
think.
How did you get this far in life? Like,
Yeah.
it's kind of easy. You have a piece of paper that I gave to you. Or giving the girl a piece of paper, and the next day I'm like, okay, so where's your piece of paper? Oh, I forgot it. Like, well, it's your job.
One
Like,
job.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's Friday. I forgot your paycheck.
Oh, I did it.
Maybe next week.
I did that. This one girl, I mean, my God. It was every single day. You know, my employee and I that has worked with me forever, I mean, she hates cleaning houses, but she does it. She's the gardener. She does the housekeeping so that we can, you know, because it's our bread and butter in the winter, you know, housekeeping. That's kind of why it worked out well, because I would be housekeeping on the same property we were gardening. So we would go to one house a day. But then now things have grown a little bit more. So, but either way, you know, so I send the girl in the house to clean, and I tell her, like, okay, they've done this, this, and this. This is going to be different from last time. And then, like, I come in, you know, an hour later, and she's only got one half bath cleaned. And I'm like, what have you been doing? Like, why did it take you that long to clean a toilet? Like, an hour. Like, and you're just, at some point, you're like, I'm just so blown away by it. And, like, you're consistently just not understanding what we do here. Like, you're cleaning a house. You have other rooms to get to, you know?
Yeah.
And they just, this one girl, yeah, she just
And you're
wasn't
charging
getting it.
hourly.
Yeah, she wasn't getting the concept at all whatsoever. And it just got to a point where, you know, I had a client come to me, and she's a great client. And she was like, so I was wearing white socks around my house the other day, and they shouldn't be black, right, on the bottoms? And I was like, okay, that's the camel that broke the straw's back. Or the camel that broke the straw that broke the camel's back. So yeah, they basically, I fired her after that one, because it was like the 100th time that I had been like, this is really simple stuff. When you go into the kitchen and it's dirty, you clean it. You know, and I come in and, oh, the house is all done. I'm like, well, how come there's dirty dishes in the sink?
And this is after she spent 2 months next to you doing that same exact job.
Yep.
Yeah, you know what to say. They can't fix stupid. You know?
I mean, at what point, like, do you
That's
feel like you gave her a lot of opportunities?
Yeah. Like, way too many. But that was also, that I gave her a lot of opportunity for the pure and utter fact that something happened during COVID. People don't want to work. It's the weirdest thing. Like, I used to put, you know, ads out there that I'm looking for somebody, and I would get, like, I don't know, 10 people. Now, she was the only one that called. The only one. And it's not for lack of trying on my part. It's not for lack of, it was just people. I don't know what it is. People, it's really hard to find help these days. And it was kind of like scraping the bottom of the barrel. And I was like, all right, let's see if we can fix stupid.
Yeah.
And it just didn't work. I definitely was like, nope. And yeah.
I was just talking to I met this like 20-year-old kid the other day, and he was like, oh, I'm looking for a job. And I was like, all right. Oh, nothing. Never mind.
I thought it was
no bombs. We're good. He's, you know, I'm looking for a job, and I'm like, oh, okay. Well, you know, I have a landscaping company, you know, and I kind of just threw this out there because I'm like, this kid is not. I already could tell that he's not really looking for a job. And he's like, yeah, you know, I'm looking for some work, and he's like, well, how much you paying? And I was like, I'll pay you $25 cash to start. And he was like, no, it's not enough.
Not enough.
And
He got like 30 years experience.
So I burst out laughing, and I was like, "It's not enough." And
Like,
I was
what are you looking for?
I was like, "I'm sorry. Well, that's the best I could do." You know,
Like, hold on, tell me what you can do for me.
Yeah,
That
right?
would make you worth
You
more
do
than
realize-
that.
you
Because
do
that's like
realize-
a top end. Nobody's
Yeah.
making that much money doing
Believe it or
landscaping.
not.
apparently
Believe
they
it or
are. I
not.
don't.
No.
Believe it
know.
or not, like, prices are raising like crazy right now for our industry. It's amazing. Like, I was yelling at my stepfather the other day. I'm like, you need to charge more, dude. You're charging prices from like 10 years ago. Like, you need to charge more. Like, because if you don't, again, they think you're not worth it. So you do have to keep the prices
competitive with everyone, and it's not about, in my mind, it's like I'm working so hard to like work every day and to run the business. I kind of forget to double check what other people are charging, and then all of a sudden I pull my head up and I'm like, wait a minute, why are you making $10 an hour more than I am? you know? And so yeah, you do have to pay attention to it, because again, just like you said, if you're not driving that new truck, or you're not, they think that you're not worth it. If you don't charge as much as other people, they think there's something wrong with you. So you do.
Yeah, if you don't have a giant car payment and you're
if you're not,
then you're
like,
not doing
maxed
something
out
right.
If
your car's paid for.
What do you mean you don't have credit card debt?
Yeah. What do you mean you're not dead up to your eyeballs?
You don't have 3 loans? Why not?
You're not a real person.
And, well, I got to a point too where I was like, I'm in college, and at that point in my life, like, there were things that I was good at, but nothing I really like had a passion for. And in the summers and on the weekends, I was doing caretaking, because I was making $20 an hour when everyone else around me couldn't make anything like that. They're going and slinging burgers for $10 an hour, So I'm like, wait a minute. I'm looking around at all these people, and I'm like, I really love where I live, and all these people bust their ass all week long in New York City for all these big expensive jobs, and they make all this money just so they can own a second house here. I'm like, why don't I just own my first house here and live here, and make money off of them? And that's what I do. And I have a lot of clients that are like, you kind of made a smart decision, because more money, more problems.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's true. I mean, I don't envy a lot of them in the position that they're in. I mean, the things that they got to put up with, and I mean, especially when they get older, I watch how their families are to them, and I mean, God, I wouldn't want to do it. I wouldn't want to do it. I wouldn't want to have that much money. I just wouldn't. I like cleaning my own house.
I couldn't imagine having somebody come into my house and clean.
Right? It's a weird thought.
That's
it's a weird thought.
I'm good.
Yeah. Well, and too, a lot of these people, this is their second home, so their like real personal stuff isn't there. But I do wonder about their like first home housekeepers, and like, what did they walk into? If I walk into this, what did they walk into?
I had a client one time, and there was a door to a small room, and it was always locked. And they were like, don't ever go in that room.
Yeah.
And I was always like, that's gotta be the sex room. What? I always
it made
wondered.
It worse.
Like,
didn't
what
it?
They
is
locked it.
behind
How
that
did they
door?
think? Were they afraid you're going to pick
it like
the lock
the
to get
real-
in there? Or?
Right?
No,
it
it was
made
like
it worse.
it was like actual key lock on the inside. Like,
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Like, don't go in there. We locked it.
no, I know.
No
but it was-
shit. You
You
locked
shouldn't
it.
have
Oh
said
yeah, I know,
anything.
right? 'Cause-
Yeah.
But then after they did, I'm like, what the hell is behind that door? And
Yeah.
to this day, I'm like, I'm still coming up with ideas.
The fucking guy's
It's
comic
killing
book
ya.
collection. It was nothing.
I have learned how to pick a lock, so maybe we need to go visit this place.
I don't work for them anymore. They were assholes.
It was probably where he kept like, it was the
Yeah,
dirty
I'm like,
sex
is that
room.
the
It's
sex
where he had-
dungeon? Like,
Yeah.
oh my, like I don't.
You question every time there's an Ambler alert.
Maybe
You're like,
that's-
we should go to that guy's house.
Maybe, right.
Check him out.
Maybe it's where all this grow. Maybe it was his grow room.
Yeah,
Who
right.
knows?
Hey, maybe. I've worked for a guy that he wasn't like a doomsday type of guy, but he had like the bunker and all that. And it was because he had to make me go down there and clean it.
And you're like,
every
I
once in a
hope the
while.
world ends on a weekday when you're in the
And
city.
you can't get across the bridge.
No, but the first thing
'Cause
my
I know where I'm
husband asked was
going.
like, does he own any guns? I'm like, no. He's like, well, I know where we're going. I'm like, nice. But it's there's definitely a whole side to people. Like, I mean, there's famous people you see on TV, and I work for a guy who he's a journalist, he's a broadcaster, and he interviews people like Netanyahu, and like he interviews very powerful people, and Trump, and so on and so forth. And I watch him on TV, and man, he's terrifying. Like, he's a really terrifying guy. And I'm like, at home, he's nothing like that. Like, he's the sweetest guy I've ever met. And like, he's one of those people that like when he asks you a question, he genuinely wants to hear your answer. It's not just his training, like, and he remembers it the next time I see him, and like he'll be like, so how's your mom? How's her back doing? Did she ever get that surgery? And like I'm like totally blown away by how he's just so different in the public eye than he is. And like when I was growing up, I worked for a guy. My mom actually worked for the family, and we had no idea that he was as powerful as he was. We found out, like, because I don't look these people up. I really don't. Like, I'm very much the type of person, like, if you're nice to me, I'm nice to you. Like, I don't need to know what you do for a living, because that's not, like, the way...
Doesn't affect what you do.
It doesn't affect what I do, and it also, like, if you treat me good, that's what I'm going to take, how I'm going to judge you, you know? Like, I'm not going to judge you on what else you do in the world. I'm going to judge you on what you do with me. So, I grew up around this guy. He was like my grandfather. And it wasn't until years later that I realized that he was like one of the, like, he was the vice president of one of the largest firms in New York City. He represented the Archdiocese of Boston. Like, he was a very powerful guy. And here I am at 16 years old, and I'm on his country estate, and the car pulls in to, you know, come pick him up and bring him back to the city. And this guy gets out, and he's just standing next to the car. I'm like, can I help you? And the guy's like, yeah, I'm here to pick up Mr., you know, so-and-so. And I was like, oh, okay. Go inside, and I'm like, yell from downstairs. I'm like, Peter, the car's here for you. And he's like, all right, I'll be down. He comes down, and this guy literally bends over, puts his two hands together, and is like, oh. And he's like backing up and opening the door, and I'm like, what? You know, here I am calling this guy by his first name and, like, you know, yelling at him. Like, hey, buddy! Get down here! But that's how we came to find out that everyone in the city was like, he was a very powerful guy, and he did a lot of things for a lot of people, and he had a lot of power, and people were a little afraid of him. I had no fear. He was like my grandfather, you know? His secretary used to get totally blown away when we would talk about, oh, yeah, we got to get his jeans clean from last weekend. He was, you know, digging in the dirt with us, and she was like, he wears jeans? She's like, I've known that man for 50 years. He's never worn a pair of jeans ever. We're like, yeah, he was running the tractor last weekend. Like, but, you know, they come up here, and this is a different world for them, and they don't have to deal with all of that, you know, crap that they deal with in the city. And I don't know, that's what I try to do, is I just try to treat them like I'm talking to you guys, you know, because they get a lot of that in the city. And I don't know, in the city you're judged on how much you make and what you do for a living, and I feel like when they come here, I don't want to judge them on any of that. I just want to be a human being that helps them out. You know, like,
that's
another
a great
person.
attitude. I mean, very Buddhist Zen of you.
I mean, it works for that, you know, small group of people, but then you get the people that want to flaunt it. It's like, in the same sense, we don't give a shit.
Yeah.
I don't care what car you drive.
Oh, yeah.
I don't care how big your house is.
Mm.
I could care less.
But those are the people I don't want to work for.
Exactly.
So that's how you weed them out. Because when they say, oh, well, you know, I work for this company and I make da-da-da-da-da, and you're like, good for you, buddy.
Fucking da.
Yep. They get pretty angry about that. They don't like that. But, you know, I don't need them in my life. So, bye-bye.
So at the end of every interview, I always ask the guests, you know, if you got a message to send out to the world, here's your opportunity. What would it be?
Oh, God. Don't become my competition.
Now that we've just given you
all
your
secrets,
trade secrets
all
away.
the trade secrets.
Find your own town.
Yeah.
This town ain't big enough for the both of us.
It really isn't.
I better not get you in my territory.
Yeah. I pee on all the corners. It's all mine. You can't have
marked.
it. No, really. I mean, okay,
and you're on camera now for peeing on all the corners.
No, what I really have to say is, and I think it's changing a little bit with the new generation. Well, maybe in our area, like my little cousins, they all want to go to trade school. They all want to go work in trees, you know, taking lumberjacks and all this other stuff, and they want to be mechanics, and they're going to trade school. They don't want to go to college. And all I have to say is, don't look down on the people that scrub your toilets. I mean, don't look down on the people that are out there doing the gardening. It's just because it doesn't have some fancy air to it doesn't mean that what they do doesn't have meaning and that they enjoy their job. You know, if it wasn't for them, you wouldn't have a nice clean toilet to sit your ass down on, or you wouldn't even have a working toilet.
You wouldn't have a clean pot to
You'd be
piss in.
shitting in an outhouse. So have a little respect, right? Yeah, there's nothing wrong with working in the trades, I think is what it is.
That's awesome. I think you found the right show to say that on.
Yeah.
Right?
Or I think we found the right guest. Hey, thanks for coming in.
Yeah.
Really appreciate
Thanks
you
for
taking
having
the
me.
time to do this.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I don't have a lot, but I gave it to you. So.
All right, everybody, check us out on Facebook and Instagram at Jobs Not Steve Podcast, and leave us some feedback. You know, we want to hear if you guys like the episodes. We want to hear if you have an idea for an episode. We want to hear if you want to come on the show too. Send us a message. We got an email now, so it's jobsnotstevepodcast@gmail.com. You could always shoot us comments there, and yeah.
Ratings and reviews are everything. I mean, we need the feedback in order to keep growing and to, give you guys content that you want to hear. So don't be shy. Let us know what you think.
Thanks again for coming in.
You're welcome.
All right, everybody, have a good night.
Have a good night.